Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's video. I have Chris here today with me. Chris was a career coaching client of mine. He actually was here through the All Saints Career Ministry, and he actually started working with Deloitte as an executive coordinator, decided to quit his corporate America job, pursue his passions and purpose, and now works for the Theology of the Body evangelization team as part of their sales team. So, Chris, thanks so much for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course, of course. So, wanted to get you on here and just learn a little bit more about you and your experience, not only in the career coaching space, but then also working with the All Saints Career Ministry team. So, tell us a little bit, like before you started working with us, kind of what your experience was like in the job hunting field, just kind of where you were at before all of that was starting.
Yeah, so even before Deloitte, I'd had a period of unemployment and was just kind of struggling in finding a job. And I basically got the Deloitte job through a referral. But it had kind of come on the back end of a bad experience with corporate before. And, Deloitte was a lot better, but I still was like, I just don't want to be in corporate America. It's just not really who I am. So I started kind of like part-time job hunting, close to around the year mark. And I'd get some interviews every now and then, but nothing really stuck. And I was kind of having a hard time. I studied history, so of course, whenever you tell somebody that, they're like, "Oh, you're going to law school?" Like, no, I don't really want to go to law school either.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of in this like, I feel like I've exhausted all my options. I wanted to do something vaguely related to ministry or Catholic, or at least something kind of with the liberal arts background. And I didn't really have a good idea of where to go from where I was with the kind of job experience that I had. And I was like, man, I'd love an outside perspective on this. And I'd actually looked into coaching before, but I couldn't afford it. So I was like, well, oh well, I guess. So
Yeah.
then,
Let me try to figure this out by myself.
yeah. Well, my roommate told me about the All Saints career coaching. He did it too, and it was really helpful for him.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I might as well, nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So just filled out the form, got in touch with Tracy, and she put me in contact with you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's always great to hear too, like kind of like where we're coming from and where we're going. And even taking that step for yourself to say, like active humility here. I actually do need some help with coaching, and whether it's a free service or not, like being able to just kind of tap into that and knowing that you want to take that transition rather than just staying in a corporate America role, and just kind of operating in that space, diving into something a little bit new, even if it's not, history, right? So tell me a little bit about, well, I know we were talking about this a lot during our time together, right? Is, kind of what you discovered about yourself during and throughout the career coaching process, especially when it comes to your passions, your purpose, things like that.
Yeah, well, I think again, kind of going back to having a liberal arts background, I had
Mhm.
come to believe like, oh, I've only got these soft skills that aren't really very practically useful.
Mhm.
Um, and you kind of helped me to you were kind of able to help me look at my experiences in a way of like, oh, like this is where I could practically apply some of those soft skills, but then B, some of the other skills that I just kind of picked up in my work experience or in like volunteer activities that I'd done,
Yeah.
and say, this is how these could be practically useful. And it kind of broadened my horizon on what I could actually be doing from a work perspective.
Yeah. Totally. Right. So it's like you were saying, just some of those skills that we have. I think a lot of times people are like, well, it's not going to be useful. Right. Like I was just working with a bunch of teachers and they're like, well, I feel like my skills only operate in the classroom. I'm like, no, no, no. Like you have such transferable skills that can be applied in so many different places,
Mhm.
not just in different jobs, but then in different roles throughout too. Because I know that you're pretty involved in, the St. Rita group as well. So even taking those skills that you've been honing and learning, but then actually applying them into other areas and just kind of opening up those job opportunities of,
Mhm.
wait, where can I actually thrive and excel in what I want to do and everything like that.
Yeah, it was definitely eye-opening. I was like looking up jobs for history majors at one point, and it was like lawyer, teacher.
Yes.
And I was like,
You're
well, I
like,
don't really want to be a lawyer, and teaching doesn't pay that much. So,
yeah. So walk me through a little bit as we were doing career coaching together, what you discovered about your passions and your purpose and where you can apply some of those things. Just like for people who are maybe they are history majors or they do have a liberal arts background, like walk us through that a little bit of, what you discovered throughout this process of working with the career ministry.
yeah, I think I kind of learned to let go of the like my job must be this one like salaried thing where I've got like X amount of PTO and like I get like maybe a certain amount in raise versus like I started doing the freelancing thing. I think I don't think I had started that when we had started coaching.
Mm-mm.
Um
That was after or
and
during your coaching.
that was kind of a how do I broaden like I know I want to do something with writing, but I don't know how to make it work. And this freelancing thing seems like uh it'd be cool, but it takes a lot of work, and I'm not really
Yeah.
sure what that entails. And kind of as the coaching went on, I was like, well, maybe I could just do it and see what happens. And I think that was kind of the biggest impact of like it's okay to just kind of try and fail at something.
Yeah.
Um, and it turns out that like freelancing side gig is kind of gave me the freedom to accept jobs that paid a little bit less because it kind of made up the difference of what my
Yeah.
salary was. And so that
Yeah.
was like super helpful to just be um, like broaden the perspective is kind of the words I keep coming back to of like what actually is available to me, like the skills, like I know how to write, and so I can apply that either in like a specific writing context or say like, okay, well,
Mhm.
writing helps me like analyze data or it helps me
Mhm.
like articulate myself in a way. And so there's a lot of different like things I can do relating to
Totally.
that.
Totally. Yeah. No, I love that what you were saying too, in terms of, where you can take your skills. It's not only to different full-time jobs, right? But it's also to different opportunities. So whether that's freelancing or contractual work or, working with the church, right? I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to kind of shimmy and shake. And that's what I tell people, especially those who are like thinking about owning a business. I'm like, doesn't mean that you have to go full throttle into this full time. Like you can actually build it up on the side so that when you're ready to make that transition, you can. And sometimes that involves like having a full time job and doing stuff on the side so that you can make ends meet. So
Yeah.
I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah, and it was I mean, once the freelancing thing started going up, that's when I really was like, okay, I know I want another full-time job because with
Yeah.
my corporate job, it was like I had to get every potential client cleared as a conflict of interest.
Yep.
And it was like I know a buddy who he's got a side gig and he's just doing his own stuff and they
Yeah.
said no actually.
Yeah.
And so it was like I suddenly like this Deloitte job, which had been kind of my stepping stone and stability to look for a new job, was now like this hindrance. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, that was a big part of the motivation to just find a new job.
Yeah, I love that. So just from what you were saying too, just learning, don't be afraid to take that step, whether that's in your passions or your purpose or even going a little outside of that. But then also how these transferable skills, happen and can actually find these new jobs and opportunities, but then actually, like I said, kind of taking that step and even having the motivation to take that step. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Um, and I guess also too, like even during the process, right? Like, how did you feel while working with me and then the career ministry as well?
I feel like my main part of the experience was with you because the career ministry stuff was the like webinars. And
Mm-hmm.
Tracy was super helpful. I felt like the
Yeah.
webinars for me were kind of an additional thing that I had trouble making time for during the workday.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like we'd be talking and you would say something and it'd sound like kind of obvious, but I was like, that never occurred to me.
Yeah.
And like it would
Like,
just kind of
oh
open my mind
yeah.
like, oh, like if I like we talked about, like when we talk about resumes, that was a big one.
Yeah.
I had like 𝘱𝘳𝘪𝘷𝘢𝘐 as this party that I threw, and I talked about it in interviews, and I was like, this could never go on a resume. And you were like, no, like it can. It's like sales experience. It's
Yeah.
like fundraising and social media and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me. Like, this sounds so stupid to me, like as like it's a party,
Yeah.
but it's actually like there's experiences and skills I can take away from this.
Totally.
Did that answer the question? I feel like I might have got
That's it.
off track a
Yeah.
little.
No, no, no. It did. I love it. And that idea too, I tell people this all the time when they're doing, they're writing their resume and they're like, well, I just like volunteered at this place. I'm like, no, 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 you got so many skills from that. Like, let's put it on there. Right. Or,
Yeah,
like you were saying, you were hosting, this, big party that's for like the DFW region. But I was like, the fact that it got sponsored by like diocesan run organizations and things like that, and you raised X amount of dollars, I'm like, let's put that on the resume, right? Because that shows your sales and sponsorship and fundraising experiences. So
yeah. Shout
I
out to
love that,
Father Ignacio for being just awesome.
right? I know. It was awesome. I'm like, it's so great. It's so great that able to support that. And again, giving credit to you, like for actually spearheading that and making that happen. So aside from like everything else that you do, like at St. Rita's and just in the community in general. So I love it. I love that. So I guess another question I have too is, after working with myself and then the career ministry as well, what kind of results do you feel like you achieved and what kind of things did you learn?
I think the biggest result was finding a job. I
Yeah.
felt like going in, I felt like I kind of tapped all my wells.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure what else to do. I was like, I can keep checking the diocese job board.
Yeah.
Um, Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
The second part was like, what did you learn?
What I
What
learned?
results did you achieve and what did you learn?
Yeah, I think I learned kind of again the I keep coming back to broadening my perspective. I
Mhm.
learned just how transferable a lot of the skills I had were. I think I learned kind of about that side gig thing. Like I can take like a half step and I'm not gonna fall, right? If I'm like writing, I can just put stuff out there. Or like if I was making something, like I can just try to sell it. I don't have
Yeah.
to make a living off of it the first time I do it.
Right.
And it gives me experience. And even if it hadn't turned into like a side gig thing, it's like, well, now I've got experience writing, right? And I can
Yeah.
point to something and be like, well, that's published, right? Like I'm a published writer. Then I can
Yeah.
put that on my resume, right? And be like, hey, hire me. I'm a published writer. So that was just really useful.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully, I mean, sales was so out of the blue for me, but uh, I could kind of see all the ways that the skills we've been talking about have been useful. I'm like, well, maybe this is just another step to wherever I'm headed. But uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of I felt confident enough to be like, I'm gonna step into something completely out there because who knows what's gonna happen.
I love that. Yes, it's that leap of faith, right? I think the Lord calls us to take that leap of faith, even when we don't know what the end looks like, and just being open to some of those open doors and possibilities because you just never know what that door can lead you to. So I
Yeah,
love that. And being able to take, again, what you learned and what you've experienced, whether it's volunteer, missionary work, sponsorship work, I mean, all this kind of stuff, right? And then actually like dive into sales. And now you're working for a Catholic nonprofit. I'm like, that's awesome. That's great. Right. So many things, so many things. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before I ask my last question to you?
not that I can really think of. I mean, the service was great. Definitely something I would have paid for. It was through the career ministry, but as I
Yeah.
said, I just couldn't. So just very grateful for the time you volunteered.
Yes. Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And we have so much fun at the career ministry. We love it. We love being able to help people, whether it's people at the parish or people not at the parish, to really connect what their purpose is in finding that next role for them. So, but the last question I have for you is what kind of advice would you give to anyone who is watching that's seeking coaching or on the fence about it? Or maybe even someone who's watching and they're like, I have a liberal arts degree. I have no idea where to go next. What kind of things would you say to those kind of people?
Well, I'd say if you're on the fence, it worked for me. It's worked for my roommate. I know a lot of people that coaching's been really beneficial for.
Yeah.
I think like any problem, job hunting is kind of a problem to solve, and having a second perspective on that is just invaluable, especially somebody who like is dedicated to solving these kinds of problems. It's definitely worth the time and money if you can afford it. Liberal arts degree. I feel your pain, I guess is what I would say. But like I said, there's a lot of transferable skills. You just kind of gotta broaden your horizons or broaden your mindset on what that can be. I know STEM's really popular right now, but math never told anybody the answer to the question why. So
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
liberal
I
arts
agree.
is good and valuable and is needed in society. So don't be
Totally.
afraid to pursue something in that.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. This was absolutely fantastic. And for anyone who is interested in career coaching or learning more about the All Saints Career Ministry, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's through a DM or email, and I can definitely lead you to that direction to really find what your purpose is, be able to craft your story on your resume, your LinkedIn, and land that job that you love. So thank you again so much, Chris. This was
Thank
awesome.
you.
I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you and seeing you around the DFW area. It'll be great.
Yeah, you too.
Awesome. Thanks so
Have a good
much.
one. Bye.